The greeting of love. As you enter into the household, greet it. Matthew 10:12, Western English Bible. I will read to you the 10th chapter from the Gospel of Matthew. I'll cover the whole chapter, but I'll focus on verse 12. As you enter into the household, greet it. The current danger that religious and spiritual people face is the following. They think they know everything, and that they have solved all the issues. Everyone says, I know. Most of us always say we know, yet the world isn't any better. It hasn't improved. I ask then, if the student who says, I understand mathematics, but cannot solve the simplest problem, what knowledge does he have? If someone says he understands a language well, but cannot write a simple letter, what does he understand from the language? Consequently, in order to define knowledge, it means to know that you know. And this understanding means having the ability to perform what you know, just like the violinist who knows how to play well. And when he starts playing something, everyone says, he plays well. Now many say, I understand music, but few people can actually play. How many musicians are there now? They are few. You will listen to people with different abilities everywhere. They all call themselves musicians. The ideal of every musician can only compare to the ability of those several dozen who are actually good. The same law can be found in the spiritual world. I now consider life to be great music. To live means that you must know how to play according to all the rules that divine science requires. As soon as you become impatient, the bow trembles and the tones are not clear. When you doubt, you lose your memory. As soon as you doubt, if you are a businessman, you will go bankrupt. The student who has doubts about one of his classes loses his mind. He goes to have a conversation with his teacher, who says, sit down, and he completes the course with a failing grade of 1. We take the outward side of life and say that it is a series of unhappy misfortunes that we experience on earth. Let's define what unhappiness is. Unhappiness is a symptom, a sign that shows the degree of deviation. The greater the unhappiness, the greater our deviation from the right path, the greater our deviation from God. It only shows the deviation, and according to the deviation, these sufferings come as a consequence. The greater the joy, the greater the closeness to God. And then, when someone says, I'm unhappy, I say, he's on the left side of the path. I calculate the angle at which the deviation occurs, and it may be 10 degrees, 15 degrees, 20 degrees, 25 degrees, 30 degrees, 35 degrees, 40 degrees, 45 degrees, 50 degrees, and so on. It's a whole mathematical system. So, while he thinks of the misfortune, I think of the angle of deviation, and I can determine in the next 10 days how your unhappiness will increase by 5 degrees. Later, you will start to decrease the angle, and when you come to the neutral zone, you will be on the straight line that will show the true direction of your life. You will establish a correct angle and correct movement in the right direction. Your happiness will begin to increase. It's the pendulum that is swinging in the other direction. Now everyone wants to have happiness. Then, since you want to have joy, go to the right and move in that direction. I don't want sufferings. Don't go to the left. Someone says, I want to be a scholarly person. Then learn. Don't rely only on the book. Christ had 12 disciples. Now you're going to say, Hey, if only I was one of his disciples. What a privilege it would be for me. I would have been either John or Matthew, and my name would have spread throughout the world. Yes, but you also might have been Judas. At that time, Christ had one Judas, but now they exist by the millions. The other disciples are not the only ones who multiplied, but Judas has also multiplied. Take the 12 who were born and multiplied, and then proportionally, Judas also multiplied. If you take the entire Christian world, we have 500 million Christians. Divide them by 12. How many would reach each disciple and represent him? Up to 40 million. So there are 40 million traitors in the world today. And this is only in the Christian world. We don't have to dwell on this now. You will say, why is it like this? Regarding this question, you will answer for yourselves why it is like this. This is how it is. Someone says, a person left his wife. Why did it have to be like this? That's how it is. The issue is settled. This is the fact. But why? Hey, this is how it is. The man who kicked out his wife needs to answer for himself. The philosophy isn't so deep. Why did he kick out his wife? Because another woman took the place of the first wife. Why did the woman kick out her husband? Because another man took his place. This is the philosophy. What kind of philosophy could there be? The cause is important. If a woman leaves her husband, another man has come into her life. If a man leaves his wife, certainly another woman has taken her place. This is how the matter stands from his viewpoint, although it actually stands a little differently. One woman cannot destroy the happiness of two women, and one man cannot destroy the happiness of two men. However, one woman can destroy the happiness of two men, and one man can destroy the happiness of two women. This is how the philosophy of life stands. If someone comes to your house and doesn't greet you, don't accept him, as Christ says. But if he greets you, and if he is worthy, say, peace unto you, the highest of the high, may it come into this home. And so, when someone meets you and doesn't greet you, you have a sign that he's not among your own. You don't greet him, you're not among his own. The point is clear. Since you're not from among his own, how would you greet him? Now I want to turn your thoughts to the positive side of your life. You are not all required to do the same thing. You are not all required to have the same knowledge. And you are not all required to have the same virtues. Every virtue has 35 million forms. And when these forms combine with the original form, they form other forms. And so, studying a virtue is a great thing. Someone says, I know love. Just calculate how long it would take to count to 35 million. If you count to 60 in 1 minute, normal counting. Count how many days or how many months it will take you to count to 35 million. In 1 hour, you will count to 3,600. Now count from there. Let's put this arithmetic in action. Suppose we count for 12 hours a day. It's interesting when someone says, what is goodness? What is virtue? In order to know how much time is needed to only count the forms of a single virtue, it means we need 810 days. And since we count for 12 hours a day, it means twice as many. That is 5 years. Also, we won't be counting for 12 hours, but 6 hours, which means we need 10 years. And do you know how many years are needed to perceive and absorb a single form of virtue? So, what we need is an understanding of the essence of the current life. This essence develops gradually, a method in which the essence of life is hidden. A child cannot skip the first years and immediately become a youth, and a youth cannot skip the phase of adolescence and become an adult. And the old man also has a progression that he has to go through. We have childhood, youth, adulthood, and old age, and there is an intermediate state. And the same law reigns in other areas of life. In order to understand the higher truth, you must have the sense and the ability. You have abilities, but you need to have awakened them. They need to have developed, and you need to have these organs with which to perceive those perceptions. And then, consequently, you need to start studying those things. Therefore, the first step in the occult school is for the student to first develop the necessary organs that are in the brain to develop these feelings and abilities. And in order to develop them, he must remove all negative thoughts that hinder his development. And these are anger, fear, malice, and hatred. When I say that you shouldn't hate, it is because you will hinder your development. You won't end up causing harm to other people, but rather to yourself. When we talk about some kind of morality, this morality first affects us. A good life is required so you can properly develop your feelings and powers, and to form your organs, the organs of your soul. If you don't live well, you will become deformed, and then all the sufferings you hadn't even dreamt of will come. And when you ask, "Why do I suffer?" I will answer, because you have deviated to the left and have given place to all the negative qualities, and these develop other feelings in a regressive direction. The forms shrink, and in this way man degrades. Christ says, "As you enter into the household, greet it." I consider any man who greets his friend to greet him. And after you greet him, and he accepts you, then give him your peace. And if he greets you, his peace will come too. And the peace of God will be established in both of you. And then the Son of Peace will come there. Where there is peace, Christ will enter in. And where there is no peace, Christ cannot enter in. And he says to his disciples, "As you enter into the household, greet it." Who should you greet? The Lord, the one who lives in this home. This is how it is. If there is someone living in this house, you will greet him, because God is there. When the son comes to his father's house, doesn't he need to greet? When the daughter comes in, she too needs to greet. If they don't greet, they're not true sons or daughters. What does the greeting consist of? The Bulgarian says, "Good day." And how should the goodness of this virtue be defined? Virtue and goodness are the fruit of love. So, in whichever home you enter, you will greet it with the fruit of virtue, which is love. Not just with the word, "good day," and "God has granted you goodness." I can also say to you, "good day," without it being such a good day. And you say to me, "God has granted you goodness," without there being any goodness. And this resembles what they have in America. Over there, the American students have a custom on one of their holidays, which is called Thanksgiving Day in English, which means a day of being thankful and grateful, when the Americans gather like we do during the Christmas holidays, and many turkeys suffer. It's the same over there. There are roasted turkeys everywhere, and then the students are very generous, as they write greetings on cards that have attached monetary bills. And they are very generous, signing such bills worth $25,000, $50,000, and $100,000, which are like these Russian rubles today. So we also say the same to each other. Good day, good day. And when you take thousands of these bills, you can hardly get a single left for them. In Christ's teaching, you are not allowed to take such bills. When you say good day, you have to experience such a day. And when the other person says to you, God has granted you a good day, he must also experience that good day. And when he has experienced it, he must also give it to you. This is how you must greet each other. Now we have as a greeting the formula, there is no love like God's love, and only God's love is love. I have given you the simplest formula, but you have nearly contaminated it, and you say it very quickly. There is no love like God's love. Only God's love is love. Sometimes the people just answer with, only. If you are unable to pronounce something, don't say it at all. You will stop once or twice for yourself, and for your own good, you will pronounce the words, there is no love like God's love. This is a mathematical variable that must be turned into something positive. Now let us look at the letter X, with which we write the word Christos, Christ. If we remove the lower left dash, we get the Y sign. If we remove the upper right dash, we are left with the H sign, a letter that goes into the initial syllable K, CH, with which we write the word Christos, or Christ in English. The letter C stands for the moon, which constantly fills up and empties. The letter H stands for a being who stands upright. The letter CH, K, stands for a wheel that turns both up and down. This letter is formed by two Y's, one up, the other one down. X equals Y plus H. So the letter X means a person who turns up and down with his head. When he is wrong, he turns upside down. When he is not wrong, he turns his head up. When a person sins, he stains Christ. When he does not sin, Christ enters into him to cleanse him. Then he consciously utters the formula, there is no love like God's love. If we delete the left half of the letter H, we get the letter Ch, or K, which means an open blossoming flower. Many words begin with this letter. Chasha, cup, chas, hour, cello, forehead. It's an art, knowing which part of the letters to take away in order to transform one kind of energy into another, that is, one state into another. Eating is also a process of transformation, to convert a lower state of living energy into a higher one. In other words, eating is a process whereby the living potential energy in nature says to man, you will take me into yourself as a conduit and lift me into a higher world. Until that happens, you will work on me for a long time. Once you have cultivated me, you will gain health. Thus you will benefit from me and I from you. I say, when you convert this energy to the first power, you will receive the first gift, health. When you convert it to the second power, you will receive the second gift, happiness. When you convert it to the third power, you will receive the third gift, bliss. And now, understand that you are disciples. You need to start transforming the energies. Do not stop. Do not concern yourselves with other people's degree of development. Who reached which level, who said what, or what he knows. None of that matters. I ask you, when you eat, does this energy undergo a transformation in you? It's not enough to merely say that you ate. If you transform this energy properly, using the divine law, then the first thing that will appear in you are deep feelings, then thoughts. After this, a great aspiration will appear. And finally, the will to fulfill will come. And this is a fruit. And this fruit will determine the degree of love. The forms in heaven will determine how you spent your time working. And the Lord gradually tests your heart. He tests all those energies that you transformed. He will enter your garden. He will see the kind of fruits it produced. And from there he will draw his conclusions about you. When the Lord comes, he will say, "Take me to your garden." And he will walk around to see what you planted, whether there's fruit. He will be cheerful, but he won't say anything. He knows very well how you spent your time working. Nowadays, the students sometimes write the best solutions to their problems when taking an exam, but they actually keep the answers to these questions hidden under their sleeve, and the student constantly looks under his sleeve. And these sleeves are the ones that actually solve the problems. When the teacher checks, he says, "Excellent," and gives the student a 6. He got a 6, but it's all thanks to his sleeve. Now, if I give you a problem, how will you solve it? Most of you will look at your sleeves. Someone will look up such and such an author to see what he said. Then this information goes back into his sleeve, and then you'll say, "This is about love." But you still haven't even said anything. You just extracted other people's thoughts. You need to solve it. You need to listen to the teacher when he gives you a problem to solve. He spoke to you for hours about how to solve it and so on. You need to sit in your place and think for an hour or 2 or 3. You will struggle a little, and when you struggle, you will arrive at the rule. And every person who struggles is blessed by the Lord. But whoever looks into his sleeve has his sleeves pulled back and exposed by the Lord. Nowadays, we see women wearing tight sleeves. The Lord says to them, "Don't look into your sleeves." What does this mean? If I translate my thought further, it means the Lord says, when your sleeve is long, you must know how to give things away, how to be generous. But when you don't know how to give, the Lord says, you need to have tight sleeves. And this is how tight sleeves arose. In order to form the wide sleeves, the opposite process must come about. These thoughts must come in an ascending degree. Now, let me turn to my thought. Why exactly should we greet each other? A greeting is a great necessity for all good people. If the sun didn't greet us every morning, all the misery of life would be born. And oftentimes, when the clouds hide their greeting, we become saddened and desire their greeting. The rays of light that come must bring that greeting, that energy, always. And this greeting can be expressed not only in movement, but also in a feeling, in a kind and gentle glance. And what we do for others, we actually do for ourselves. But now you say, I'm not going to greet him. So you don't greet him. Nor does he greet you. You say, I have dignity. And what happens? No. All truly dignified people harness their energies to work. And the students who don't know their lessons are given a failing grade of 1 by their teachers. Now some student looks into his sleeve and another student wants the answers from him, but he doesn't give him anything. And then when they leave, the student starts pestering him. Why didn't you let me use your answers in your sleeve? And then he continues, you're being unfair. You entered into this divine school and you need to have wide sleeves. But when you solve problems, you shouldn't look into your sleeves. And in regards to the sleeve, I understand what the women mean when they say,
I didn't commit a great sin. There are others who also sin. Yes, the sleeves. And they are Ivan, Dragan, and others. Don't look at others who haven't solved the problem. It's not important. If I solve the problem, it is of use to me. And if I don't solve it, but you solved it, this won't be of any use to me. And as disciples, you have to solve the problems consciously. Some of you are proselytes, others are listeners. There are also believers, and finally you become disciples. But I have such and such an education. Good, I will give you a problem to solve, and you will know whether you're a disciple or not. If you solve it, you're a disciple. If you don't solve it, you are either a believer or a listener or a proselyte. The problem that you'll solve will show what class you're in. If you can only solve problems in arithmetic, then up to which grade do you study mathematics? Up to 3rd grade. So we'll know what grade you're in. But we completed our study of arithmetic. Everyone knows you're in 3rd grade. If you know algebra, again, we'll know what grade you're in according to the material. It's the same in the spiritual world. According to the problem, according to the virtue, over there they know how far you've reached. In order for a person to be virtuous, it's one great science. And when a person masters this art, he will say, life has meaning. When a great violinist goes out on stage, everyone recognizes him. But how many years did it take him to master this art? And how much time must the disciple expend so he can become wise? Not to merely know the forms of things, but to put the content and meaning into the form. And so, you must greet each other. With what? When you meet your brother, you will say, there is no love like God's love. And your brother will reply, only God's love is love. Good. Let's see what the first formula says and what it means. There is no love. You meet a person who has many sufferings and he says to you, up until now, I haven't found even a single person who can help me. And he says, there is no love like God's love, which is to say, only this love comforts. And you will say, only God's love is love, meaning that only this love is love. And then, if the person is sick, he will get well. If he is unhappy, he will become happy. You will be that love for his sake. You will say, come, brother, we'll settle this matter. If he starts philosophizing, saying, but how will it come to be? Is this right? And other things, then this is not the right way. We tell everyone, come and see. Don't philosophize. A person who did 99 favors for you, but until now you haven't answered back to him with even a single decent glance, then you're not worthy of being his disciple. If he gave you something 99 times, but you haven't answered back the 99th time, then the 100th time will decide your fate. If you don't answer back even the 100th time, your fate is sealed forever. They will kick you out of the divine school, and then in one of your incarnations you will be born an idiot. In another one you will be a cripple. And when they ask you why this is, you will say, because I didn't greet back when they greeted me. When divine love knocks, but you're acting like you didn't hear, this is miserable. But if you answer, you will enter into contact with the advanced brothers in the higher worlds, and you'll say, I now see. What about you? Do you see? I also see. And so seeing will be the joy of this soul. Now I speak to you about the greeting, because this year you are called to fulfill in love. And whoever does not fulfill what is given in love is not a friend. He cannot be a disciple of love. The disciple must learn only from the great love, and his heart must burn. It has to burn with love. There is no love like God's love. The matter is settled. And if you ask, why doesn't the Master reveal some things to us? Then I say, because you don't have love. If you had love, I would reveal many things to you. But what stops me is that you don't have love. You have love, but what does your love resemble? If I do 99 kind things for you, but only once do I pinch you, you will say, I kick away everything else. Some of you are like this. And whatever information you entrust to such a disciple, it will be of no use to him. I do not apply horseshoes to the hooves of such people, because they become even worse with this new metal piece, and they can kick with it. And to such a cow, I do not apply metal horns, because she becomes even more evil. I speak symbolically. I don't have anybody in mind. I am speaking about the matter in principle, without having any of you in mind. I am telling you what the principles are. This is the way it is for you. But if you go by the other principle, it is the same. And I say, this principle cannot be destroyed. There is no hypocrisy. God looks at the heart, not at the face. According to your feelings and your thoughts, according to what occupies your mind, so will the God of love proceed to do. There is a verse where Apostle Paul says, I planted, Apollo watered, but God gave the increase. So it is God who increases and brings things to maturity. That which must come to maturity will come from the great divine Spirit. But in order for him to come, someone must come to plant it. What do you think? That you can enter the kingdom of God without a teacher? You're fooling yourselves. You cannot enter the kingdom of God by yourselves, just as much as a child can give birth to himself. In the same way, you too cannot do without a teacher. You will say, I know everything. You are a foster child who is far from the kingdom of God. First and foremost, you need to find your mother. If you don't know your father, I have a different opinion of you. If you don't know your mother, you're like the fish. One fish lays 300,000 eggs, and the baby fish cannot know her mother. The baby fish knows neither her father nor her mother, and the greatest sufferings in the physical world are in the water. All the creatures there are carnivores. They all eat each other. And you have gulping and swallowing there in the water, and there is no peace whatsoever. Now Christ turns to you, right? You will only have a little this year, but you must acquire it with love. But you say this is so, that was so. I don't accept any excuses. No excuses at all. The fact that such and such a thing was the cause, we don't have any obligations in regards to that. And we don't want any excuses either. Can you do this thing out of love? I can. Then even if the whole world turns upside down, you do it. If you're a coward, don't take it upon yourself. Think about it. And most people think about it, and they'll continue thinking about it for a long time. If you take it upon yourselves through the law of love, nothing is impossible. Impossibility occurs only as an assumption in the human mind, which doesn't obey the divine law. When your master or teacher has given you all the conditions, and your father has given you all the conditions, I ask you, what kind of impossibility is there in you that's keeping you from learning? If you have been deprived of all those conditions, I understand. But if you're not deprived,
What will you justify yourselves with? Now, make use of the law of freedom. What is the task for today? What is the task for Sunday? Divine harmony. Yes, the English write harmony like this, H, whereas the Bulgarians write H, harmonia. The cross, that's the harmony. You will say, the cross is dangerous. Whoever knows how to carry this cross, it's harmony. But whoever doesn't know, there's no heavier cross than this. And harmony absolutely always excludes disharmony. And the divine life is the life of harmony. And when we talk about heaven, you must understand harmony. As you enter into the household, greet it. Greet who? In the old times, the prophets said the following, that God lives not only in heaven, but in the hearts. Whose hearts? The hearts of the humble, those who are lowly in spirit. You, when you meet a lowly soul, you should know that God lives in the heart of that soul. But the current Christians say, I don't want to know. But you must know that in this person's soul lives a great soul. And when you go into his home, you will greet that soul. When you offer your greeting, he will accept you. So I encourage you to greet each other, because you should know that you might possibly offend God. And when you offend God, it's very difficult for him to forget this. What did Christ say? Whoever offends the Spirit will not be forgiven, not in this life or the next one. Beware of offending the Lord, who lives in the hearts of humble and meek people. Keep this with you as if it were fire. When you meet an impoverished person, don't keep away from him. You say, but he has karma. Do you know what his karma is? This poor man might be carrying the karma of someone else. He might not have done this sin in the slightest, but that other person isn't here. He's living somewhere else. But this one is here, and he's bearing the atonement in his friend's place, saying, I will bear everything and take it upon myself. The Lord is good. I demand one thing from you. My disciples here in Bulgaria lack respect. You are extremely coarse, all of you. You will hardly find a few people who are gentle. You are very coarse. I'm telling you the truth. Everyone is only looking for his own rights. And each one of you seeks first place. But when it comes to your obligations and fulfilling your tasks, you say, wait a moment. The first place is for those who sacrifice themselves. Second place, for those who have faith and trust. And the third place is for those who have hope, who are joyful. If someone comes into my home, if he has hope, I will give him the third chair. If he has faith and trust, I will give him the second chair. And if he's capable of sacrificing himself, I will give him the first chair. But why don't you give me the first chair? Because you don't sacrifice anything. What about the second one? You have no faith or trust. The third one? You have no joy. And I would like it if all of you proceeded like this in your own homes. This is something reasonable to desire, and this divine feeling can grow in the most delicate and gentle life. With every despair, you insult that feeling. Then how will you lead a life of love? But I know it. What is it? You don't know anything yet. If someone commits a crime, you don't know why he did this. If someone does something good, you don't know the causes of this good deed. You have not yet read the divine book, so you can say, I know, I read it. I'm not judging anyone. Do not think that I'm judging you. To judge you means to judge myself. I'm stating a fact as it is. And I see the results that take place in the invisible world. And some days, as I sit occupied with something, one of your actions stings me, and I say, here is a noble disciple. He caught me with his arrow. And what do? I rub the wound with my hand.
I apply saliva to the spot and it goes away. The next moment I see some other woman who stings me again. This woman disciple also does a good thing. And again I rub myself. I caress the spot and say, that's all she knows. And when these people come to my home, they want to take the first place. No, let's not do that. From this year onward, we can't keep doing this. Up until this year, it was possible to do it. I made many attempts in the last 22 years, but from now on, I make no exceptions. I won't budge even 1/100th part of a million. And if you don't fulfill the law of love, then I have nothing to do with you, and I won't meet you or deal with you a second time. Understand this. Others will deal with you. The law of love requires this. If you're able to walk, then good. But if you're incapable, then you're on the left while I'm on the right. And then, the more time that passes, the more the path diverges. You will start going downwards, but I will go upwards. And then, after millions and millions of years, we will meet again somewhere. But if I meet you there, do you know what this resembles?
When it comes to this task, do only a very small thing. Do only a very, very microscopically small good deed. Spend 1 minute or 1 second of the day, but apply all the love that is in your soul, and that minute will be for your own salvation. But what if you don't stop for even 1 minute of the day? You can stop for at least 1 minute to do one small good deed out of love. Now, don't go to the other extreme. I have nothing to do with this. I'm just telling you what the principle is. The higher you stand, the stricter the law is. The more you know. This shows that your responsibility is greater, and the less you know, the lesser your responsibility. So, you will strive to be very delicate, first toward God, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second thing, toward yourself, to love your neighbor as yourself. And the third thing, to love your enemy. You must apply these three things. You need to love that third person. He's your son. The enemy is the son. The neighbor is the soul. And the son and daughter are the material in the world. After raising her, the daughter will take up a debauched lifestyle. The son will do the same, but the mother still loves him. He came from her. He came to her home. What else can she do? And therefore, in this greeting, you will start from love. First and foremost, you will say, because of the Lord, because of my beloved soul, and because of my enemy. But because it is said like this, someone might say, how can I love my enemy? If you haven't fulfilled the first law, you won't be able to fulfill the third law. The third law is difficult for those who haven't fulfilled the first law. But those who fulfilled the first and second laws, the third one is easy, but only if you fulfilled the other two. And now, you men and women must distinguish yourselves by having mutual respect for each other. You must strive to find one good trait in your brother and sister whom you don't like. You will search within your brother or sister to find one good trait, and you will focus your attention on that good trait. This is the only way that love can develop. The law of love is required. Only in this way can you fulfill Christ's teaching. Only in this way can Christ enter in and reveal to you what your heart longs for. And only in this way can you settle your affairs. You won't become rich, but you can suddenly become powerful. And in one day you can be healthy and everything else, but it requires the will of a saint from the third degree. Say and do this. I am ready to experience everything for Christ. Don't be one of those people who becomes discouraged and unsure after just one small attempt. A brother told me that he had given up carrying a rifle,
And in the midst of war, he kept getting beaten, but he held on. At one point, he began to feel tired and said that if the war is not over and if I am still getting beaten, I won't have the strength. I won't be able to endure. They beat him for 3 years and he endured, and the war came to an end. So they stopped beating him. And then he said to himself, "Thank God the war is over and I passed my test." They beat him everywhere. They did everything they possibly could. And they asked him, "Why don't you want to serve as a soldier?" And he answered them, "Before you mobilized for war, the Lord mobilized too, and I signed up to serve there, and I can't be a soldier in 2 different armies. But why don't you want to carry a rifle?" "I have a rifle. One doesn't carry 2 rifles." "Where is your rifle?" "You throw away your rifle and then you'll see mine," he answered them nicely. And once you have also been mobilized, you must fulfill the law of love and divine peace, and you'll see that God is right. And I want something good to come out of Sofia this year. I want you to give an example to others from Sofia, and I hope you will. Can this really happen? It can. Something will come out. Why not? But now you'll say, "May God help us." Well, love is knocking on your door. Perceive the love and everything will happen. May God give us an intelligent mind. Well, faith is knocking. Open the door. Now love is knocking on your heart. Faith is knocking on your mind. Hope is knocking at your will. Open these 3 doors. Then you will see how beautiful these 3 pictures are. And all the issues will be resolved magically, just as Moses did with his rod. In the name of love, faith, and hope. And the Red Sea parted, opening a path with his rod, and then everything is possible. Now you are becoming excited. You want to lift up this rod. You need to open the doors of your heart, your mind, your will, and then everything is possible if you just open them. But if you don't open them, nothing is possible. And you'll be like the person who went to a cripple and said to him, "In the name of the Lord, stand up." But the crippled person struggled to get up. Then, when other people saw what he did, they gave him a good beating. They broke his bones and left him. They asked him, "Why did this happen?" "Hey, I wanted to heal a person, but the people didn't acknowledge my work." This is not so. The people said, "Let's teach this liar a lesson. How dare he lie to us?" And they beat him. But in order to save face, he said, "These people beat me because they are unwise." When you go to this crippled person, the door of your heart, the door of your mind, the door of your spirit must be open in order for the faith, hope, and spirit to flow through. And then you need to say, "Brother, in the name of the Lord, may his name be glorified." Everyone can try. But first, you need to see whether the doors are locked or open. Now, you're not going to make me speak to you on this subject a second time, are you? I will now please ask you not to think that I want to criticize you. I have absolutely no thought in my soul and my mind, heart, and spirit to criticize you, nor do I want to deal with your mistakes or sins. But, based on the results, I say, these things are not good, in whatever way you do them. I say, this is not good for you. If you put a bomb here, a bomb there, one day when they explode, you're the ones who are going to suffer. There was a man in Cousin Luck who wanted to catch a bear, so he set up a trap, but in the morning he saw his donkey caught in it. Whichever house you enter, greet it with faith. There is no love like God's love. There is no other love in the world like God's love, and it alone has manifested through all the centuries. And all the other forms of love that exist in the world are the forms that manifested in one singular continuity throughout all eternity. every form of eternity manifested in finitude. When a great love manifested, it constrained itself in a small form of love. But now you don't recognize it. You lost one of the great moments of getting to know it. This is the great philosophy. There is no love like this love, which contains all the conditions within itself. Everything within this love is positive. When you get close to it, everything is possible. But if you don't get close to it, you lose everything. In the words, there is no love, I will give you all the formulas according to its meaning, how to keep God's love, and how to cultivate it. In there is no love, there are all the ways of how to acquire it. So it's not human love. It is, for instance, like the farmer who knows when to plow, what seed to use in order to plant across the land, the kind of conditions it grows in, among other things. Or it can be likened to that vine dresser who also knows what his vineyard needs. There are ways and methods for doing this. And when you say, there is no love like God's love, these words contain the great secrets by which you can develop this art. There is no love means a flower has to form. But before that, there must be forces in order for it to grow. When it is conceived, it needs juices to grow. It's not enough to merely conceive an idea, but it must be cultivated, and you need to carry it through until it becomes a fruit. And then the teacher will say, only God's love is love.
Is it possible for something good to come out of Sophia? It's possible. I would like it if some of those among you begin distinguishing yourselves with delicate actions, and to have competition amongst yourselves, but it must be natural. You need to be courteous. Say to yourselves, I will greet my brother the way I want others to greet me. By doing so, we will not do what the rest of the world does. I must do unto others as I feel I must do for myself. Apply this and make an attempt. And so begin with various attempts. Make small attempts. Let them be microscopic, unnoticeable, but let them be out of love. Suppose you meet a sister whom you don't like, and you say, I don't know why, but is there something from the past? I can't get along with her. There must be karma. Well, good. How will you soften this karma? Another sister comes by whom you love, but since you don't like the first one, then this one also doesn't like her. She's not nice to her, but she brings you one grape. But the first one doesn't have a grape. Now, what should you do? You need to understand this grape and give the sister whom you don't like the good part of it and say, Sister, take it. And she needs to see that you gave her the better part. Is there something bad in this? And this sister, upon seeing this deed of yours, will say, I had a bad opinion about her, but there is something good in her. These are small examples, and there are even more microscopic examples. If your sister's shoes are dirty, you need to tell her, Wait, sister. You will take your rag and bend over to clean them. You ask, But how can I bend over? You will bend over, and by doing so, and cleaning the shoes, you will completely turn her over. Every disciple must do this as an example. One microscopic good deed is more useful than one large good deed. Can something good come out of Sophia? Yes. But what do you say as you look from the outside? Vote on this. I don't obligate you to do this. I'm telling you that whatever you can do out of love, out of divine love, then do that. Then I too will do whatever I can with this divine love. And then, when both you and I do it, everything is done. But whenever I do it, but you don't, or you do it, but I don't, then nothing will happen.
This is how the matter stands. Then I will return to the other world, and my situation will be one that resembles that one person who sowed 6 watermelon patches and nothing came from them. He put 60,000 leva into them and nothing came out. The money was gone. And the growing was left for the following year, but I will no longer sow watermelons in the coming year. When I come next time, I will sow a garden. And if it also doesn't turn out, then I will find something that will eventually turn out. But there may be reasons for the fact that my watermelon doesn't turn out. But the watermelon that doesn't turn out also loses, and the person says, "I'm not going back to that watermelon patch." I don't dare to clarify this any further. But this is how the matter stands. If you sow, it's to your benefit. It's also a benefit to others. But if the seed doesn't turn out, both you and the seed lose. You lose your fruit, while the other person loses his money. Can something good come out of Sofia? Something good will come out. Something good will come, all right. Will this watermelon patch turn out well? It will. I want big watermelons, up to 10 or 12 kilos, but like the ones from Sofia, and I want them sweet, like the ones from Plovdiv. I now speak to you in an intimate language, not one that is familiar to you. I speak intimately to you. I don't speak to you any other way. I want everything in you to be natural, unforced. I don't want anything to be forced. All of you should be natural, just as God created you originally. Whatever is great in us should come out. I want to awaken noble feelings, lofty thoughts, and those organs that are necessary for God's love in the present age. Can something good come out of Sofia? Yes. Let it be so. Secret prayer. A message given only to those who are part of the chain. Now I will give you something else. To the women, when this lecture gets transcribed now, I want 10 to 15 women to appear in order to copy and send it throughout all the gathering places. You will copy it, not for yourselves, but for sending it out. Only those who want to do this with love can participate. There is to be no delay for this lecture. The work must be done as soon as possible. You will only write it by hand, with ink, and one copy must pass through your hands. We're going to try out your love, aren't we? We can give money and have it printed by a machine, but I want it from you. I'm making this attempt with the women because the men are busy. The women are going to write it. They will gather in one place. I set a deadline of 12 days from today for all this to be done. Lecture held on the 2nd of October, 1921.